Hey guys, how are you doing? Hope that you're doing okay. Life has been, well, right now life's great because I am just decompressing. I'm out here in nature. This is where I'm at my best. But things have been tough, I guess, for a lot of people recently. We've had protests. We've had, oh, look at this. Nature has a way. But yeah, it's been crazy. Like with coronavirus, with the Floyd's death, especially it is quite the time to be a black man in America. What I tell people is that black people in general live as black people every day, right? So any of the struggles that we say comes with being of a certain race, we live it every day. From overt racism to institutionalized racism to people having an excessive amount of fear of us to, the type of opportunities that we get versus the type of opportunities we should get. We live all these things every day. And seeing the extreme stories, play out on television, deaths, abuse by authority figures, abusive tweets, insensitive tweets. When we have to experience that on through the media, through video, it's not that we're surprised, because again, I don't know a single black person or brown person that's been surprised at anything that's happened. There's a reason for that. It's because we live it, and these are just extreme examples of what we live. Yeah, it's not so much that we're surprised, but it's exhausting. And I guess I want to do a video related to things that are actually happening, and how we might digest those things, as INFJs are based on our personality types. So first of all, I don't know if you can tell, but I've cut my hair. A little panorama for y'all. Yeah, exactly. And yes, I said I cut my hair. Not a barber. This guy under this mask. So this is like an unveiling for you guys. Is that what you call it? I'm going to reveal the new and improved Garrett as I take off the mask. Oh my gosh, he looks the same. Yeah, so did a little bit of a trim up. I did it for the views. It's summer, so I felt like a change was needed. Not too much of a trim up, because I wanted you guys to recognize me. I didn't want you guys to think, who is this guy doing this video? I don't know this guy. And then just skip. Get out of here, you're not an INFJ. Who's this Garrett imposter? But yeah, so let's talk about digesting these things that are happening. And I am tired of talking about it from a systemic level or on a personal level, because I've had to do so much of it. And some of it's not bad. A lot of my friends have been trying to understand, wow, I've had friends come to me and say, I didn't realize some of these things were issues to the extent that they were in America. I didn't realize the rage that had been building in the brown community. Talk to me about it. And so I've talked to him about it. I've talked to him about how peaceful protests haven't worked recently, how no one's listened. We had these football protests, whatever you think of it. People weren't focusing on the issue of racial injustice anymore. They started focusing on the fact that they didn't like the protests. So this has happened, time and time again. We don't like the way you're protesting. So I feel like when nothing changes and there's a group of people that live a certain way, day after day after day, year after year after year, then eventually this is what happens. An incident occurs, and then rage spills over. And of course, there's collateral damage, but people are listening now. People are talking about it. So my hope, it's not condoning all the things that are being done, but my hope is that these things at least bring attention to the issue itself, the issue, not the symptoms, not the fallout, but the issue of systemic racial injustice in the country. And anyway, I've been exhausted just talking about that and talking about what it means to me. Protesters walked right outside of my house a few days ago. Yesterday. When was this? This is not my strong suit, is remembering dates and times. As an INFJ, I'm copping out of this, and I'm blaming it on my personality type. But anyway, they walked by, and it's been a reality. It's been tough, and this is on top of course, what we're all going through, which is a pandemic that we've never seen, like one that we've never seen in our lifetimes. A whole different way of life, and wearing of masks, the social distancing, the backlash to that, the conspiracies that pop up, the exploitation of leaders in power exploiting the situation, all of it. It's all of it, right? But guess what? Through it all, there's a silver lining, and that is that, with this whole coronavirus thing, we've had a chance to sit with ourselves. We've had a chance to reflect on the things that were important in our life and the things that weren't. We've focused on issues like this issue with racial injustice or whatever. We've had a chance to focus on that more than we ever would have before. So maybe some positive conversations come out of this, some open-minded conversations, and in the end, hopefully some change. But all that being said, let's get back to personality. So INFJs, one of the things I want to point out, sorry, that was really weird. Without being able to see what was happening, seeing the bug biting my leg, you're like, what is this guy doing? But one of the things that I want to point out is that we all use every cognitive function for at some point. So when we talk about Myers-Briggs or the personality typing, we just talk about our preferred type, the one that we use regularly, most comfortably, more often. As I always do, I want to give a quick rundown of the personality functions of an INFJ, so you guys understand what I'm talking about, and I don't seem like some sort of clown just blabbing off talking about like ENDB, IFG, whatever. You're just this guy that's just talking about letters. So again, INFJs are introverted, intuitive, feeling judgers, meaning that we are oriented towards the inside primarily, that we are intuitive, picking up subconscious patterns, that we are feeling, we are concentrating on, when making decisions, how people will feel, how we'll feel, and we are judging, meaning that we are structured, we are outwardly more rigid, more organized. Our functions, and this is getting deeper, our functions are introverted intuition first, meaning inward directed pattern detection, which demonstrates itself in our ability to make predictions over time. We understand how one thing will affect another, and how it is likely to play out. Our second function is extroverted feeling, meaning that we are worried about harmony in our outside world. Third function is introverted thinking, meaning like deduction, logic, inward turning rationality. And our last function is extroverted sensing, which is just basically the world around us, the net we cast, the things we're perceiving. So extroverted sensing is how that bug felt when it was biting me on my leg. It's how the wind feels in my hair. It's the cut grass that I'm smelling in front of me. It's the birds chirping that I'm hearing. That is extroverted sensing. Okay? So one of the things that's happening to me personally as an INFJ is, I think, the disharmony of my outside world is bothering me. typically I try to be a counselor type, a mediator type. And when people's emotions are high and they're not willing to listen to opposing sides because of just the passion or because the anger or the ignorance, that bothers me, because I try to come to it from a point of view like, let's create a mutual understanding, guys. And they're out here like with pitchforks, like, burn it down. So I understand that sometimes that's needed to draw attention, but that bothers me. It exhausts me. The other, and that goes both ways. It goes with me trying to explain to some friends who don't really have context to understand it, because racial injustice isn't an immediate part of their life. Especially if they're not brown, and they don't. There are people that are kind of living in a bubble, not in a bad way, but living amongst each other, and to them, it doesn't affect them personally, so they don't understand. So as I try to explain to them, some of them come from a passionate place too, where they're more entrenched now, because as things get hotter, people become more passionate about whatever side they're on. So that's bothering me, is people's unwillingness to listen and talk as an extroverted feeler. And as an introverted intuitive, I think typically we have hunches about where things are going or what things mean. I hope you guys can hear me over this wind. It's nature doing its thing. But typically we have these hunches about where things are going or what they mean. And I guess it's hard when other people don't see it, right? And other people aren't trying to listen to you. I'm especially thinking it's probably hard for other intuitive types who aren't as rational or as analytical, because they have trouble explaining it. They're like, this is what I feel, and these other people aren't understanding what I feel, and I can't put the words behind it to express it. So I get that, and that's got to be hard for people. But I think that the primary difficulty I'm having probably has more to do with sensing being my last and most inferior ability. Well, sensing, and also the fact that I'm a judger and I like to plan things and to be organized, and all of this is a lot to deal with. It's a lot of people to deal with, a lot of things to juggle, and it's all unplanned. It's chaos. And so that's why I escape and I come out here and I talk to you guys, because I think the INFJs will understand that we can deal with that, but it's tiring, especially when we know how important it is. And that's the thing about recent events, is that they're very important to me, and I don't want to just let it go. I want to do my part, but it can be exhausting because of the nature of the problem. So I know I've talked a little bit before about the pandemic itself and how that applies, and how INFJs are absorbing this. I talked a little bit about how the social distancing part, it's tough for everybody, but it's probably less tough for us because we like our distance. I mean, it's tough to be away from people that you love, if that's the case. And everybody's experiencing this pandemic differently, but in terms of having our personal space in our bubble, I'm excited about it. I'll run off a list of our cognitive functions and talk a little bit about how we're experiencing it through the lens of each of those functions alone. Keep in mind, this is not scientific, because each function doesn't operate by itself in a void. But just for the sake of understanding, I'll run through it. So first, introverted intuition. My favorite, because it's my first. All INFJs primarily use introverted intuition as their first lens that they see the world through, meaning that when we take information, we take it in primarily through subconscious pattern detection. So in Baltimore, this is how we get down. Today's election day, and instead of having sign waving, there is a parade with the mayoral candidate's name on it and a rap song playing in the back with her name. Rapping about going to vote for her. That's how they do it in Baltimore. So introverted intuition, my favorite. So when our introverted intuition is operating improperly, which for many people I'm assuming it is during the pandemic, I personally know it is for many people. A lot of times that demonstrates itself in the form of conspiracy theories. So there you go. Find your friendly INFJ. Find your local INFJ. Talk to him about the pandemic. And chances are probably 50-50. If he's stressed, he'll come up with a conspiracy theory, or at least drop hints like, what no one's talking about is what they don't want us to know. Have you ever noticed that they're keeping this from us? It's always they. Listen for they. The ambiguous they is INFJ's favorite target for the conspiracy theory. But anyway, why that works, why that happens is because instead of using intuition first, which would just be taking in the world and intuiting it as it is when we're stressed, we tend to try to stuff the intuitive information that we're picking up into our bias that we already have. We're scared into the fear that we already have. So it looks more like us thinking through something and then trying to make the patterns fit into what we already believe, rather than just accepting things as they are and taking them in as they are. So your local unhealthy, Jesus, Baltimore. So your local unhealthy INFJ during the pandemic may be preaching his conspiracy theories loudly to you. That would not be uncommon. Forgive him for this, for he is stressed. Extroverted feeling. I can speak to what unhealthy extroverted feeling looks like, because I've gotten trapped in a place where I am just overly aware of how everybody around me is feeling and what they're thinking, and it puts me in this place of being a people pleaser, where a lot of times for me, I neglect myself. I'm not doing the things that I want to do because it will feel good to me. Instead, I am overly concerned with making sure everybody else is okay. I become tired, I become stressed. Your local INFJ is likely tired and stressed during these times. I am. I need a hug. You guys can't give me a hug. Give me a digital hug. So that's how extroverted feeling looks during these times, is this direction towards wanting harmony, and there's not a lot of harmony out there, guys. So what we can be drawn to during these times is this sense of unity, like people that are passionate in the way that we are and that are seeking resolution and seeking peace. That feels good, and I've seen some of that on TV too. I've seen cops coming out in front of crowds and crowds of protesters and kneeling with them and saying, "We kneel with you. We don't like this injustice either. Let's weed it out. Let's root it out. Let's destroy it." That feels good. It feels good to find people online, whether they look like me or whether they don't, coming together and saying, like, "We feel your pain. What can we do? What can all of us do?" It feels good to see people that maybe do look more like me or are a little bit darker, even, getting together and saying, like, it's time for a change. Like, we all feel each other here, and we're all here to support each other. That feels good for extroverted feeling during these times. Introverted thinking. My favorite loop. So, introverted thinking is going inside yourself and turning your thinking inwards. And what it looks like for a stressed INFJ is just a constant loop between intuition and thinking. And a lot of times that's what leads to conspiracy theories, and a lot of times it leads to overthinking and overanalyzing with no solution. So my ENFP and my ENTP friends, I need your help. Come to me with your "it's going to be okays." Come to me with your solutions. Come to me with your "Garrett, get out of the house." Because without extroverted thinking, which is how do we get things done, or extroverted intuition, which is intuition of opportunity, we can get stuck in a cycle of thought, and we can be solving problems that aren't important or that don't even exist. So That's how it can look. Lastly, extroverted sensing, that inferior function, that love-hate relationship that all of us INFJs have. A stressed INFJ who's being stressed because of their inferior function might look a little bit like this guy. This guy, forgetting everything, which is I've been doing recently. Oh, I drove half a block and forgot my wallet at the house. Or right now, there's a razor blade sitting somewhere inside my car, an open razor blade that I thought I put on the seat, but I guess I didn't, and I can't find it. I've been exhausted recently, as I told you, and this is what happens when I'm exhausted. I become absent-minded, sensing, which again is the feeling and detection of the things right in front of you, the world right in front of us. The least energy goes into that function for us. So when we are energy exhausted, that function falls off and we tend to forget things, misplace things, be absent-minded. It can also exhibit itself in terms of exhaustion, in the sense that with too much sensory information, like I said, the protest passed right by the house. We can be overwhelmed, very uncomfortable, and want to go within ourselves, inside of ourselves. So sometimes that can happen too. Had to mask up. People were too close. Have you noticed that as time goes on, people are just like, I can't do this anymore. People are just going back to their normal way of life. At least here. I guess it's probably different everywhere, but yeah, people are just like, I can't deal. I need people around me. And I'm like, get away from me. So, extroverted sensing, again, is the here and now, what's in front of us, the smells, the tastes, the things that we're seeing. But for INFJs and people with introverts with extroverted sensing, especially with this as our inferior function, it's the one that we give less energy to. So at times of stress, it's the first one to go. Like imagine you're on a boat, and the boat's taking on water and it's getting over full, and you have to throw some of your supplies off because you don't want to sink and drown and die. You don't want to die. So what do you throw off first? You throw off the things that are least important to you, and that's extroverted sensing for us. Like we're like, you go first. We never liked you anyway. So what that does is it makes us even less present, and we can do things like I've been doing recently, which is forgetting everything. That absent-mindedness can be what an INFJ looks like when they're stressed. That's how their inferior function, their lowest function of sensing, can look when under stress. It can be more than absent-minded sometimes. Sometimes it can be like, it can seem like we're not paying attention. Like, and thank God for those of you that think it's cute. Thank God, because I'd be a mess without you. It's so annoying to some people, and they think that like I'm not concentrating when I am. I'm just an INFJ with inferior sensing who is under some stress right now. Yeah. So I guess the way to fix that is this. You know, I should have done this a few days ago. Sorry for not posting a video for a while, but it's peace, and it feels good. Just get away from things for a while. Engage in your extroverted sensing in the way it was meant to be engaged in for introverts, which is in peace, with quiet, with observing the world, taking in the smells, breathing and living in the moment. Feels good. And be in the moment and at peace, rather than being surrounded and swamped by people and corona and riots and racial injustice. So with all these interruptions, I hope I can put this video together and splice it in a way that it makes sense. But yeah, that's I guess if that's breaking down the cognitive functions and talking about how the pandemic and the protests and the news and the media has all has all affected me as an INFJ, and I know every INFJ's story and how they're experiencing it is going to be way different. That's the awesome thing about the Myers-Briggs test, is that like it gives us a kind of a roadmap of the way we're perceiving information, but it doesn't tip to tell us how we'll feel or what we'll think. Anyway, guys, thanks for chilling with me again. And for you other types out there that aren't INFJ, let me know what you're feeling during this time too. INFJ friends, I always want to hear from you. Other types, I want to hear from you too, and I'll do some videos for you guys. So make sure you like and subscribe so that one day, one person might watch this video.